Right before we jump into this video, if you'd like me to send you a free guide to capturing motion in low light situations, just look for this orange box over on FroKnowsPhoto.com, put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm going to send you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a preview of the Nikon 85mm f1.2 for the Z mount. Now, this is a preview video because this is a pre-production lens. Now, because it's a pre-production lens, I can't share the images with you right now, and I'm not supposed to zoom in one-to-one. Nikon guy's over there. He's making sure I don't do anything I'm not supposed to do. But I'm not supposed to share the images, so we won't share them because of the pre-production nature of it. But I do put it side by side against the Canon 85 1.2. The Nikon I shot with the Z9, and with the Canon I shot with the R5 because they're both 45 megapixels. One's a flagship, one's not a flagship, but that's okay because that's not what it's about right now. And I also break out the 85 1.8 Z mount lens because it's a heck of a lot less expensive than this is going to be, and I'll tell you about the price of this a little later on. But what did we do? We photographed a model by the name of Sydney. We grabbed her and took her to the park with permission. And didn't like physically grab her, but we're like, Sydney, let's go to the park and take some photos. So she was a great model. We shot outside, broad daylight, 64 ISO to give us base ISO at 1.2. It's great to have a Z9 where you can just up that shutter speed to like 1/64,000th, I believe, or 1/32,000th of a second. You can go a long way with it. But we also brought her into the studio so that we could do the bokeh test for you guys who want to see how do the bokeh balls look. We did the 85 1.2 Nikon versus the 85 1.2 Canon. So now let's take a look at the physical lens itself. It feels very nice in the hands. You take this out of the box and you're like, yeah, this reminds me of an 85 1.2. This is your lens hood. You have a clicky click button to snap it in and to snap it out. That goes right here. You have an 82mm filter thread. This is an 82mm cap. And it's nice. What it's missing, and I'm happy that it's missing, is the OLED display on top of the lens. It does not have it. The 50 has it, the Noctilux has it, this lens does not have it, and I'm glad it doesn't have it because that's just a waste of space and a waste of money and a waste of engineering. Now, it only has one switch on the side of it. The switch right here is your auto to manual. That's it. Manual, auto. I don't know that many people are going to shoot this in manual at this point because trying to get a manual focus picture at 1.2 is going to be highly difficult. And you also have one custom function button here on the lens up here. I never set that to anything personally, and I know a couple of people that do. You have a control dial here. You can set that to your aperture, your ISO, your shutter speed. By now, you know that you can custom set this to just about anything that you want to do. But let's get up here the 85 1.2 from Canon. Let's put them side by side, and as you can see, the Nikon is an inch longer. Now, in some situations, you want it to be a little smaller, but anytime you can get an extra inch, I think that's a pretty good thing. One more lens to put up here. Let's take this lens cap, lens hood off of this one. This is your 85 1.8. A lot smaller. In terms of weight, the 1.8 weighs in at just around 1 pound. 1 pound. The 1.2 Nikon weighs in at 2.55 pounds or 1,160 grams, with the Canon weighing in at 2.63 pounds or 1,195 grams. So the Nikon is actually slightly lighter. Do you notice much of a difference in weight? No, the answer is no. The Nikon felt great in the hands. Nice and balanced, nice and even. The Canon feels nice and chody. It works, but in this case, the Nikon does a very nice job. Even though it's 1 inch longer, it's not that big of a deal. And like I said, some people like 1 inch longer. In terms of image stabilization, there is no IBIS in this lens, but there's also no IBIS in the 85 1.2 from Canon. And there's none in the Sony 85 1.2 either. Oh, that's right, Sony doesn't have an 85 1.2. After all of these years, they still don't have an 85 1.2, so kudos to Nikon for getting that out before Sony got theirs out. Now, in terms of autofocus, it has a multi-focus system. It uses dual STM motors. These are the ones that go forward and back. I wish we could use this animation a little better because it looks really cool. This is where the 1 inch extra comes in handy. You get these motors in here going back and forth. and focus seemed perfectly fine to me in terms of speed. Now, I didn't test out with a kid running towards me this time. Someone walking at me, perfectly fine. When we get a full production unit, we will do the running test where we put the 85-1.2 Canon against the 85-1.2 Nikon on the Z9 and on the R3 and just show you the results to see how they turn out. Now, in terms of bokeh blades, Nikon went ahead and put 11. You've got 11 bokeh blades inside of this 85-1.2, whereas the Canon only has 9. Now, here's a side-by-side where you can see one on the left and one on the right. Which one do you think is the Nikon? Which one do you think is the Canon? Steven, show them which is which. Right, so can you see much of a difference at 1.2? But Nikon really hammered home that what they want to get out about this lens is the bokeh-ness of it. The fact that it has the 11 blades, they say it's going to give you a rounder bokeh. Steven, in our testing, showed us that at f2 with the Nikon 85-1.2, you start to see a more rounded bokeh. So at 1.2, you see what you get. At 2 is where you start to see it be a little more rounded. Do I personally see much of a difference? The answer is no. I'm never going to pixel peep to this extent to really care what it's going to look like, but for those that do, here are your side-by-side examples. And also, as you go higher with the Nikon, you see that when you go from f2 all the way up to f8, you can see that it continues to be round. The minimum close focusing distance is 2.8 feet, which is the exact same that you have with the Canon. That one is also 2.8 feet. But let's jump into some of these images right here. Again, I can't share with you these full res images at this point, but when we have a production unit, that's when I can send you raw files to play with. We'll probably make another video at that point with some other comparisons. But the reason I picked these two images, it's not to show you the bokeh, it's not the most extravagant image in the world, but more as a teaching point. I am focused on her left eye, which so happens to be the closest eye to me. This is what that looks like. Now, when focused on the right eye, which is the back eye, it just doesn't feel as good. It's not as appealing or as appeasing to the eyes. So one of the rules of thumb, and of course rules can be broken, is I generally focus on the eye that's closest to the camera. In this case, you can see how it looks a little better, in my opinion, to see the closer eye versus the further eye away. Next, we moved into the park where I had Sydney sit on one of these stairs. I just thought it actually was a good spot for her to sit on the stairs because in the background you have the mural on the wall and that might look cool at 1.2 out of focus. Now, I shot this one at 1.2. Everything looks fine. Focus looks great, tightness looks great, colors and contrast look fantastic. I want to go to the next shot because I went 1.8 with the next image. Same situation, same environment. I went to 1.8 so that we could take the 85 1.8 at 1.8 and the 85 1.2 and shoot that at 1.8 to see if you can tell any differences. This is what the 1.2 looks like at 1.8. It looks fantastic. Great colors, great tones. Now this is what the 1.8 looks like at 1.8. Now, because this is a production lens, close your ears, Nikon, over there. As I zoom in on this, for whatever reason, when I'm shooting full body, full frame right here, the 1.8 at 1.8 had trouble getting focus. It just wouldn't, it's just not sharp. It's just missed. It's on the ears. It's back focused for whatever reason. And I took 20 some pictures and not all in a row. I recomposed, I stopped, I get the focus. You could see the focusing point is exactly where it needed to be, but it missed. But the next shots, it's the 85 1.8 at 1.8, beautiful. Nice and sharp, nice contrast, nice details. You can see that it nailed it as I got closer and closer. With the vertical shot, same thing, it nailed it. So it's not the wrong settings, it wasn't a thing that I did. It was just back focusing, it was that lens. So you can see as you get closer, it nailed it perfectly fine. So in this situation, it just had an issue. But again, that's the 85 1.8, that's not the 1.2. The other thing I want to point out, Steven, put both of these pictures up on the screen side by side. You can see the 1.2 on the left. This is the 1.2 lens at 1.8, and on the right is the 85 1.8 at 1.8. Look down at the shoes and the jeans. Same settings for both, same edits for both, but look at the difference in the contrast and the details. The colors, the tones, the boots, they look much better with the 1.2 lens. Now, a lot of that is because of the glass that's used, and it's the coatings on the elements. It's also a much more expensive lens. I'll tell you, it's $2,800, which is the same price as the 85-1.2 from Canon when it's not on sale, but they're very similarly priced. The 1.8 lens is $696. That's a fantastic lens if you're a Nikon shooter. It's not a bad lens at all, but I just wanted to show you that's what we came up with. For whatever reason, it was missing in those situations. Let me jump in here because I want to show you this portrait taken with the 85-1.2 and edited with basically all of FroPak 3, starting with Zoolander, boom, Winnebago, Prestige Worldwide, November Rain, Mount Airy, Mentos, MDMA, King Contrast, Eckert, Capone, Canadian Tuxedo, Almost Famous, and Fifth Element. But my all-time favorite is Skittles. Check this out. One click, boom. That looks fantastic. So look, if you're looking to speed up your RAW workflow or give yourself a great starting point or want presets that just work, well, we created 15 custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at FroKnowsPhoto.com/FroPak3. Over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to save even more and get Skittles from FroPak 1, you can pick up the triple play bundle of FroPak 1, 2, and 3 and save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. Moving on, the sun started to move away from the building a little bit, and we're like, all right, Sydney, stand here. Let's see what we get in terms of flaring. This is literally with the sun in the right portion of the frame, right behind her head, right near her head, and this is what you get. This is not something that I normally would shoot, but there are a lot of people that shoot weddings that like that glowy McGlowerson look. This is at 1.2. I mean, she's nice and sharp, so that's great, and that flare that you're seeing is because of the angle that I'm on. This isn't bad at all. I think this is exactly what those people who shoot weddings might be looking for. Now, the next two are interesting because one of them is taken with the 85-1.2 Nikon and the other is taken with the 85-1.2 Canon. Same exact settings in the camera and also same exact edits. That means the same white balance, the same contrast, basically the same everything. Here is the first image. I'm not showing you which one it is. Next, you got this image. Now, side by side, Steven, pop up which is which. In this situation, I mean, they both did a fantastic job. Nice and sharp, great contrast, great tones. The 1.2s look fantastic. I actually like the color tone feel of the Canon ever so slightly more in this, just the color of the skin for whatever reason. But there's nothing that says that I can't match that by tweaking the Nikon more. I will say that the Nikon straight out of the camera across the board today look better right out of the camera. We always knew that was the case. The Nikons are just beautiful files, especially on the Z9. But this is just showing you side by side, very similar with the lenses and the capabilities of what they can do. Nikon did a fantastic job with their 85-1.2. You put it side by side with the Canon, you're gonna get very similar results. Now, I'm looking forward to getting a production unit of the Nikon version because then we can really go to town with side by side to see if there's any differences when you zoom in. Now, what I will say is you're gonna see differences between a Nikon and a Canon and sometimes from focus like this or focus like that because you're always moving or something's a little different. You can't get the same picture exactly when they're two different systems and two different lenses because sometimes you're an inch further forward or an inch further back. Of course, with the Nikon, it's an inch longer as we already established, but not everything gonna be perfect. Sometimes the Nikon might be a little out of focus. Other times, the Canon might hit the eyelashes because I did hit the eyelashes with the 85-1.2 on the R5, and I did hit the eyelashes with the Z9 Nikon as well. That's just the nature of the beast when you shoot at 1.2. Either Sydney moved or I moved or the focus shifted, but I still got great results with both. So at the end of the day, this is a fantastic freaking lens and I wanna sniff it and blow it. So let's start with the blow. Let's give it a wind tunnel test. It passed. It passed the wind tunnel test with flying colors. It's almost like the Artemis rocket that didn't blow over when it got hit by a hurricane. Let's sniff it. Oh, moon dust. Moon dust is expensive. This smells like moon dust. This is great. The moral of the story, based off of using a pre-production unit, if you're a Nikon shooter and you're a professional, place your order for this lens. You could use our affiliate links down below. Whoever you want to order from, I highly recommend you get this. You're a professional, you need an 85 1.2 in your bag. You're not a professional, the 85 1.8, this is going to be a great lens, but you should aspire to having the 1.2 because the colors, the tones, the sharpness, the focus, everything's going to be better with the 1.2. I was happy with the focus, by the way, with those dual motors. This is a must buy. You're a pro, you don't ask questions, you have this in your bag. It rounds out your bag really well. 14 to 24, 2.8, 24 to 70, 2.8. Maybe you have a 50 1.2. You want to add that 85 1.2. They're both going to give you different things. And of course, your 70 to 200, your 105 macro. Definitely not a 600 f4 because that's super expensive unless you can really afford it. But the 85 is a gorgeous lens. So nice job, Nikon, on putting this out into the world. If you guys have any questions or you'd like to see some side-by-sides in the future, let us know what you'd like to see down below. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.